It absolutely made a difference. It made a difference in how I executed the race. In Australia, there was no flow. I mean, there wasn't. And it was fine. I still got it done, but there was no flow. And I enjoyed Australia. And I really feel like that period of time between Kona in 2016 and then Ultraman Australia in May of 2017, that like 6-month period of time and then immediately following was kind of like the beginning of my spiritual growth. You know, coming off of that 6-month period, I knew that I wanted more out of life, more out of myself. And, you know, that's when I reached out to you, was shortly after that, you know, because I knew like you had something that could probably help me get to where I wanted to be.
That was Mary Knott, and this is the Yogi Triathlete Podcast. Hey, you guys. I am super fired up to have us all here together. I'm Jess. I'm your host, and I love the power of this community. I can feel a fire across the globe right now. It's a spark to wake up and reap all the benefits of connecting with our higher intelligence. It's a way of living that you do not turn back from, because the ease in which life begins to flow, oh man, it's just too good. It's been my experience that athletes are so incredibly primed for facing up to their spiritual path. I mean, we're already showing ourselves what is possible through our bodies. So isn't it logical to also pursue this through our mind? I mean, it is to me. And today's guest has been doing just that for over a year now. And she gives us all the details on how it informed her experience on the Big Island. Mary Knott finished the recent Ultraman World Championships in Hawaii as second place female overall. This 3-day, 517.5 kilometer or 321.6 mile race is fertile ground to unleash your mental game, and that's exactly what Mary did. She was invited to come to the Big Island on account of her impressive resume, which includes being a 27-time Ironman finisher, multi-time Kona qualifier, experienced ultra-distance competitor and crew member, not to mention that she took at least one course record at Ultraman Australia in 2017. On the day after Thanksgiving this year, Mary began her Ultraman World Championship venture with a point-to-point 6.2 mile swim, of which the last 2 miles was against the current. This was followed up by a challenging 90-mile bike. Day 2 was a 171.4 mile bike ride with relentless climbing, and she finished it off on day 3 with a 52.4 mile double marathon in the infamous Hawaiian heat and humidity. We followed her throughout the weekend along with many of you, and I think we can all agree that her execution appeared impeccable. Today we break it all down: the race, her mental game, her nutrition, and her strategy, working alongside her coach and Ultraman veteran Hilary Biscay, one of the queens behind the super popular SmashFest Queen clothing line and team. In this episode, we dissect the tough times leading into the race, like when she felt booking a flight home and not racing at all was the only logical option, the struggle that she put upon herself on account of her expectations, and the performance advantage she has gained since adopting a meditation practice. BJ and I met Mary over 10 years ago at Ironman Coeur d'Alene, and we've been following her career ever since. Mary is a 3-time YTP guest, so if you haven't tuned into those episodes, check out the show notes for your gateway to listen. If you are interested in dipping your toes into the power of meditation and mindful living, then join M21 Revolution. This community was a revolutionary concept that came to life and is now thriving because the shifts that our members are making are so high vibe that it is creating an unstoppable momentum. Listen, the proof is in the pudding, my friends. So let's just hear from someone who is drinking the life force juice every day. Ultra endurance athlete, multi-time Kona finisher, extreme triathlon master, age group champion, and spiritual badass, Mary Knott.
Yeah, so we're all kind of like gathering around the pier, and the kayakers are arriving and lining up their boats, and I'm just standing there with with my crew, and Chris is in front of me. We're just like facing each other. And another athlete walks by and is like, the water temperature is, and I forget what he said. It was like 83 or something. And I'm in the middle of putting my wetsuit on because it's Ultraman and you wear wetsuits. And it's like, I pause and I look at Chris and I'm like, why is this relevant? And Chris is like, it's not. The water temperature has no bearing on what you're doing. And I was like, okay. And I just like go back to putting on my wetsuit, but I was like, why are we even talking about the water temperature? Like, what? Where is this coming from?
Because
I just
how far off is it from the gun going off?
I mean, we're like within 20 minutes probably.
Right.
And
you're probably already in your mindset.
Just like, and I was just like, I know, like I've raced in Ironman Hawaii and I know you don't wear a wetsuit because it's USAT rules and it's too high of a water temperature, but Ultraman has its own set of rules and you wear a wetsuit because you're swimming in the ocean for 10K. You're going to be in the ocean from anywhere from, 3 to 6 hours. And like, they allow that. But I was like, I was like, why is this important? Why do I need to know this? And Chris is like, it's not, you don't need to know this.
So that immediate shift, how cool is that? The immediate shift, it's like
why are we doing this?
Yeah, you get pulled away and then it's like, no, it doesn't matter. Boom, back into it. So you could drop right back in or you got your focus back. And
Yeah. And I was like, did somebody change a rule? And I didn't know, like, am I not supposed to be putting on my wetsuit right now? Because I thought we all were.
Does Ultraman have rules like that as far as temperatures, wearing wetsuits, not wearing wetsuits?
No,
it's just...
you can just wear whatever you want.
Yeah, because it's Ultraman.
Yeah.
All bets are off. All right, so here we are in Indian Wells. Holding you captive in your hotel room.
Yes.
We were like, as soon as we heard you were coming, we were like, we've been getting requests to interview you because you are number 2 in the world for Ultraman right now. And people want to know how, we all watched it. And from our view, and we have an active crew member in the room who says no, she won't be on the podcast, but we might pull her in.
Mary travels with her crew at all times now.
That's what you don't know. Yeah.
4-hour drives. Yep. I need a crew.
I need you to drive me to Indian Wells. Yeah, 2nd in the world right now for Ultraman. That's just, it's unbelievably impressive. But knowing you and interviewing you now 3 times, you've been on the podcast, like, it's also not surprising. Does it surprise you?
I mean, a little bit, only because there were definitely moments in the month that I was in Hawaii that I didn't think I was going to be an official finisher.
Let's go right in. Like, what were those? First of all, you went 3 weeks before. 3 weeks or 4 weeks?
I went 3 weeks before the race, so we were there for a month total.
All right. And why did you do that? What's the decision behind that?
Mostly because I wanted to be able to train on the course and see every single part of the course before I actually had to race on it. And I'm so glad that I did. I asked Hillary because, if things had gone differently in my year, I would have raced early in the year, been done by June, and I would have had all the time to build up to, Ironman Hawaii, hopefully, which that was the case, and then Ultraman. And so if that had happened, I would have gone and either trained prior to Ironman or stayed a few extra days and just done a little bit of training on the course then. But just because of the way that things worked out and ending up racing Mont Tremblant, we just, I needed to recover from Ironman first. And so Hillary was like, in a perfect world, recover from Ironman and then go over 3 to 4 weeks ahead of time and just be on the course every day. So that was what we did.
And just immerse yourself in really connecting with the island. And Hillary's has she done it more than once?
Twice, yeah.
She's done it twice. So certainly she could have told you, the lay of the land and things like that. But when she tells you that if you can get to the island, you go to the island.
Yeah. She was like, you need to bike these courses and you need to know exactly what you're getting into. And I can't even tell you, because had I not done that, I don't think I would have made the cutoff on day 2. Like, hands down, would not have made the cutoff on day 2.
Do you know if there was other athletes training there like you were? Did you hook up with anybody while you were there?
There was another guy we saw like pretty regularly. I think he was staying somewhere, close to the pier, because we would go down and have, dinner or whatever, and we would see him kind of just out hanging out. And then, as it got closer to the race, more people were showing up and, going out and doing, maybe not seeing the entire course, because you're not going to ride 171 miles a week before the race. But they were checking out different parts of the course.
And I think with, just like with Ironman, like with any endurance challenge that you take on, I think it's really important to stay fluid with things. Mm-hmm. And it's not just at the race, but it's like in your life all the time. And so you had to stay fluid because you were in a little bit of an accident that caused you an injury in the spring, and you weren't able to race Oceanside, and you weren't able to race Ironman Santa Rosa. And so that kind of, it asked you to stay fluid so that you could come up with another plan that would still keep you on track with, what your goals were for the year, because you knew at that point that you had been accepted into the World Championship.
Yep.
But it wasn't what the plan A was, which was looked good on paper and would allow you to really recover and go into that big block. Mm-hmm. So what is a key thing to just being able to stay fluid with something like that? Because for you, that injury was a sacral fracture, which is pretty key to have healed, especially when you're talking about going into a double marathon at the end of a 3-day endurance event. So how do you stay fluid with that stuff?
That's a good question. Obviously for me personally, is just having that trust and belief that everything resolves to good, and, there's a reason for it. And looking back, I actually think that things worked out so much better than if my original plan had gone to fruition. Because in reality, I was so much more rested and recovered and ready to train when I started back up in June than I would have been if I had raced all spring, finished Boulder in June, and then taken, a week or 10 days off? It's the same old story. It's the same, it's the same thing I've been doing for the last, 5 years. It's just continuing, maybe a short off season, but just right on to the next thing. There would have been no downtime.
Yeah. And go ahead.
I was going to say, your ability to navigate the early part of this season, to get through the middle part of the season, have the success you had, end up where you are today. Has that always been your belief system?
No.
Heidi's giving answers about over your shoulder.
So would you have felt resistance? Would you have felt like, why me? This why is this happening to me? It's why am I not feeling the benefits of all this work that I put in?
For sure. And I, even though I do consider myself a person of faith, there's always been that, sort of trust that everything happens for a reason. But, even then it was like, if something was out of my control, then I was not happy about that. It was the loss of control that would send me over the edge.
So it's the difference in your response is basically what's happened, because in the past I've been the same way my whole life. I know everything's for a reason. I know everything always works out. I've never looked back and said, oh, that did not work out well.
Yeah.
So always knowing that and trusting it, but also having resistance against it too, because then the control was taken away. And so that's, I think the biggest difference in what you're describing is your response, your natural automatic feeling to the out of the blue kind of change. And once again, it shows you that not only does everything work out, but it actually worked out better than you could have planned.
Yeah.
And so when we take our intellect and we look at the calendar and we count the days and the weeks and we plan it all out, we're really doing that from this place of data and information.
Yeah.
And that power that, saw to it that you had the sacral fracture and required you to change your plans is a much higher intelligence that
Yeah.
doesn't use or need data and information.
Doesn't need my calendar.
There's no Garmin setting for that.
There's no Garmin setting to unveil like the perfection.
Yes.
And so that's really, really cool that you can see that. I didn't know that actually worked out better than you thought.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So, so staying fluid and getting to the island. What were you going to say?
Back to the moments of learning that she had brushed upon. You were talking about the race, like there were some moments.
Yeah, before in training.
Going back to where we were. Right. Yeah. What were the moments leading? Let's just go into like one experience you had where it was like, I don't know. I can't do this. Like, when's the next flight out? Did you get to that point?
Yes. Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, that was actually like verbalized out loud at a couple of points. But so the biggest thing was I had expectations that I had to let go of. And there were a number of those expectations that all, they all kind of like tied into me resisting what was actually happening and unfolding in front of me. And until I let go of those expectations, it was just one struggle after another. And there was, I had biked, I was supposed to bike, it wasn't the full day 2 course, but it was like 145 miles of it. So I was going to start the first 24 miles. You're on the Queen K, just riding from Kona to the Waikoloa Village turnoff. And then, so I was going to ride from that turnoff the rest of the course. And so I get dropped off. I'm immediately climbing at like an 8% grade, and it's climbing for like 4 hours. And then I descend into helo, and I turn and keep going, and it's just like rolling hills from there on. And I ended up, the roads are pretty narrow, and this truck passed me, and I hit a rock that popped up and hit my derailleur and sent it into crash safety mode, which meant that it got locked into my hardest gear and I couldn't shift. And I couldn't even like manually move the chain into an easier gear and keep riding. It would like automatically go right back into the hardest gear. And I didn't know what was happening. I just knew I couldn't shift my bike. And if I can't have a gear, I can't ride uphill. So I hopped in the van at that point. But at that point I had done 90 miles at a 10 mile an hour average. And I was like, okay, this math is not adding up. I think for Ultraman to make the 12-hour cutoff on day 2, you have to hold, it's somewhere between 14 and a half and 15 miles an hour to actually physically make the cutoff time. And I was like, 10 miles an hour is not going to make any cutoff times. Like, I'm going to be in helo when it's dark. Like, this is not happening.
So the reality of what you were seeing, right? The evidence that was showing up from that workout was like 10 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Now, did you have an expectation of how long that workout was going to take you?
No. I was just told to go ride the 145 miles easy. And so I was riding comfortably. It was not an easy ride, but I wasn't pushing it at that point. But I was like, okay, this is not what I was anticipating. And
well, that's what I mean. Was there any expectation? Like, so we can have an expectation, like an expectation can be really obvious, like, oh, I'm going to do this in 15 miles an hour.
Oh,
or
yeah.
It could just be the expectation that it wasn't going to take you
all day.
Yeah. Right. So there's still an expectation in there.
Yeah.
As opposed to that rolling in just from experience to experience.
Yeah. And I absolutely had an expectation for race day. I thought, I'm a decent enough cyclist, and barring catastrophe, I can ride 171 miles in 12 hours. No problem. And so I didn't have an expectation for that training ride, but I had an expectation for race day. And when I did the training ride, and I saw the reality of what I was up against, I was like, there's no way that this is going to happen.
So how did you move through that? Did you sit in it for a while?
Well, the derailleur locked up, so you didn't go any further than that.
At that point I hopped in the car, and it was late. So I think this must have been a Sunday because the bike shop closed early. And so I got my bike to the shop first thing the next morning and told the guy what happened. And he goes, oh, I bet it sent it into crash safety mode. And it's like a super easy fix. He literally just like pushed one button on my DI2 and it like went back to normal. So it was fine. And he checked everything out, made sure nothing was bent. Yeah, so there was that ride, and I sent Hillary a quick text, and I was like, "Yeah, this is what happened. I didn't finish the ride, blah blah blah." But I didn't give her a lot of details on like what was really going on into my head yet.
So what was going on? How were you? What was the feeling of the response?
I was afraid of disappointing her, and not just Hillary, but I didn't want to disappoint Hillary, but also like my crew hadn't arrived yet. And I was like, they're going to be here in like 4 days. And like, what if I can't make the cutoff? I don't want to disappoint them. I don't want them to think I came all the way over here. I took off work, I'm away from my family or whatever. And now you're not even a finisher. Like, what the hell is this? So I was like, I called my crew the next day, each one of them. And I was like, hey guys, here's the situation. And every single one of them was like, oh, that's fine. That's fine. We don't care. See you on Saturday. That's great. If it takes you 17 hours, like whatever. We're going to have the car stocked with food and water and ice and like whatever. It's cool. We don't care.
Nice.
So I was like, okay.
Nice.
All right, we're in it.
You're like...
Did you start to shift? Were you like, was there any shift happening because of that feedback?
There was.
Yeah.
I felt a lot better about it, just like having them on board and...
sort of like a relief. Like
yeah,
now,
like
the
it's
pressure's
okay.
Not so much pressure on you. Like
yeah. Like we're in this together, and I didn't want it to feel like I had led them on in any way. Like, oh, you're already here, but now that you're already here, let me tell you what's really going on. I like needed them to be able to make that decision for themselves. On, yeah, it's okay.
Because at this point, you're really like. You've got the evidence that's saying, like, you're never going to make the bike cut off. But is there still that part of you that I know is so strong that's like, I'm going to do this?
Yeah. And I mean, I wanted to. More than anything, I was like, just really, really wanted to be an official finisher. Because with Ultraman, you can miss a cutoff. So if you don't get out of the swim in time, or if you don't make the cutoff on day 1 or day 2, you can keep going. So if I miss the swim, that's fine. I'm no longer a finisher. I'm now our participant. And I can do every single mile of all 3 days. And I won't be an official finisher, but I'll be a participant. And I will still have done the work. But I really wanted to be a finisher.
Did you feel like you were aligned to be a finisher? Like you were... Like, but wait, like, I can see myself being an official finisher.
Yeah.
Like, I can feel myself being an official finisher.
I could.
And I think this is kind of the battle, like, right? Like, your heart saying, like, wait a minute, but it's all worked out so great, and look at how far I've come, and I'm here now, and the crew doesn't care, and Hillary's not going to be disappointed in you.
Yeah.
Like, you're so not somebody that blows stuff off. And so you've got that calling from within, that higher intelligence that's saying, this is no sweat, you're going to do this. But then you've got all that kind of the battle of the mind where it's like, but this isn't adding up.
Yeah.
So we get those two voices going, and then they can kind of make us crazy if we allow them to toggle us back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah. And Hillary, I ended up, we had several conversations, both prior to the race, and then also I talked to her every night during the race. And she said a couple of things that, like, as an athlete, to have the reassurance and the validation from your coach, like, it was so valuable to me. And one of the things that she said when we were talking about day 2, because it was still like very unknown, I am as fit as anybody there. And if I'm not going to make the bike cutoff on day 2, there's going to be a lot of people that don't make the bike cutoff on day 2. Like, that's just the reality of the situation. And she said a couple things. She said, get to the finish line no matter what. She said, I don't care how long it takes you. Just get to the finish line, do the miles. And she said, I have seen you race so many times, and I have never seen you not be able to come back from a bonk. So I want you to go as hard as you can on day 2. And if you blow up and you have to back off and take in, some extra calories or hydration or whatever, like, so be it. But don't be afraid to go to that line from the beginning. She's like, you just have to go all in. And I think hearing that from her gave me the confidence to be able to go all in from the start. Because when you look at 171 miles, it's pretty daunting. And, Australia, I had a fantastic day 2 ride and was first female off the bike on that day, but there was still a lot of dicking around. Like, there was still a lot of me getting off my bike and having a snack in the crew van. And there was I hate to admit it, there was a lot of wasted time. And
you broke the course record.
And I broke the course record at the time. But
so if you want to just do an Ultraman and have a lot of time to dick around, go to Australia.
No, and Australia has over 10,000 feet of climbing on day 2. So it's a legit hard course. But that's just the difference in the way that the elevation gain is set up between the two. Australia was very much rolling and super steep. We had some climbs that were 18% grades. And it to the point where you're like, shit, I don't know if I'm going to tip over right now.
Right.
There's no gears left.
Is the front wheel going to come off the pavement?
I'm like, oh God. But Hawaii was more 8% grade for 30 miles. Oof. And you're just not
enduring, but I guess you're
you just have to get in that gear and just
focus,
pedal.
Yeah.
And it's a straight road. There's no switchbacks. There's no turns. You're just staring at the same straight line for 30 miles. And you're like, okay, you're going to be here for a while.
I'm so glad I've trained my mind.
Yeah.
So this present moment awareness on day 2 of the bike, did you have any thoughts about the day that you came up short and only got in 90 miles in that training ride? Did that even come into your awareness?
Never. And there were no thoughts. It was so similar to Mont Tremblant. It was, honestly, it was one of those just most beautiful race days ever, because I literally rode my bike for 171 miles and never thought about anything other than my crew, who I saw every 10 minutes, and they were like, eat this, drink this, have this. Is there anything that sounds good? And that's literally all I'm doing for 171 miles. There was no thoughts.
You have a really strong ability to focus, and we talked about this in our first podcast with you, just about how you can focus on something for a long period of time and stay really locked into that. Mm-hmm. But to go back, and I want to get into kind of the breakdown of race days, excuse me. So you talk to Hillary, you're feeling better, the crew doesn't care, they just want to go to Hawaii and hang out.
Yeah.
They don't care if they're doing it from a van or a lounge chair. Was there a time between that day where, the derailleur went into that mode and the race that you were able to have another shot at that day 2 bike ride? Did you get another training shot at it?
That was actually my second time on the course. So the first time I rode from Kona up to the top of the climbs and then back down to Waikoloa. So it was I maybe got 75 miles in that day, with the 30-mile climb kind of in the middle of it. And then I I wanted to go back and like pick up where I had left off and finish the ride. But the day that I went to do that, it was like pouring down rain and super foggy on the other, between Hilo and Waimea. And, at that point, Hillary had kind of given me carte blanche to kind of like modify my training if I needed to. She was like, the hay is in the barn. Like, we need to get your head on straight. So whatever that looks like, these are the workouts that are written. But if you need to, change this because you're going to have a breakdown, like, don't worry about it. Like, just,
right.
Do what you can. And so there was one day she had said, go back and make up the missing miles. And so we drove, and as we like went past Waimea and it got super foggy, and there's no bike lanes. I mean, you're like riding with traffic. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I was feeling really calm, and now I'm feeling super anxious, and I can't get on my bike and expect that traffic's going to see me coming around these corners. And I don't feel like doing this right now. So we went to Waimea and just like sat in a coffee shop and had some lunch and just kind of hung out for a while.
The best thing you could have done. So
yeah.
Like everything says, go out and do the missing miles, because then you'll have them added up and then you'll know you can do it, and maybe you can do some more calculations and all of that stuff. But here is Mother Nature coming in and going, no. Here's that bigger plan again coming in and saying, no, you're not going to do this. You have to, this is your opportunity to trust your fitness.
Yeah.
And, when we talk about like what we want to bring into our life and changes or shifts that we want to attract into our lives, sometimes the best thing to do is stop focusing on those things. Stop thinking about what it is that you want to achieve in your life or change in your life or bring into your life. The best thing you can do is walk away, because if we get too hyper focused on it, we actually create resistance.
Yeah.
We keep it further from us.
And that's what I really felt like I was resisting, like, I'm going to get these miles done, and this is what's on the plan, and this is what's going to happen. And it was like, I could have kept resisting and gotten on my bike and like been hit by a car 5 days before the race starts. Like, how smart would that have been?
Yeah. Well, even just going into it with that kind of attitude, going into it with resistance, it's just going to make everything harder.
Yeah.
It's going to suck out so much more energy than it would to just go to the coffee shop and just walk away from the training for a few hours, and maybe journal and have a really good coffee and just get away from what it is that you want to be successful at.
Yeah.
The best thing sometimes you can do is just walk away from it. Stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the crew arrives, and how are you feeling when the crew arrives? Like, is the head on now? Is your head starting to get on straight, and things are like you're coming
Game on.
over?
Yeah. By the time they got there, I basically had, gone through everything I needed to work through, and had enough conversations with Hillary that, I felt like we kind of knew where things were at, and so whatever was going to be was going to be.
And I think that a lot of times we don't understand that when we're in that kind of contrast that you were in for a couple of weeks, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you're just really in this contrast of the training being hard, and I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, just in those tough times and those challenging times, that is actually the clearing. Like, that's actually that energy moving through you and getting out. And then if you can just stay on board while that's happening, it has to happen for you to move into the cleared.
Yes.
Right? So
yes.
all of that cleared out, just like that fog cleared out that day, and then you were clear.
Yeah.
Like you weren't carrying that anymore, and that needed to go. And I think that's another part of the magical plan that came into place, especially being on the island and knowing those energies of the island are really, really strong, that, you're going to have that contrast. But it set you up so perfectly, I think, because it sounds like you were really clear in those days leading into the event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how is the sleep the night before?
It was pretty good. I there was, during the several weeks prior to, there were multiple nights that, not back to back, but just kind of randomly here and there, that I didn't sleep well. And 2 nights before the race, I didn't sleep well. And then the night before the race started, I had a good night's sleep. So I was very happy about that.
All right. How'd you feel waking up on race morning?
Good. I felt, there was definitely a little bit of jitters, but not anything like what I had in Australia. I felt like I could eat breakfast and, stay pretty calm.
I mean, everybody knows you meditate now, but you weren't meditating with that first Ultraman.
No.
Yeah. So do you feel like that played in a little bit as far as like the foundation from which you were operating?
Yeah.
Moving into the race and just being able to see that contrast and to feel and to see when you were clear again. And
yeah. And the other thing, I'm not sure if I told you this, but we had Skyped that. We Skyped a couple times.
I think twice when you were in...
When I was in Hawaii. But the second time I said to you, I said, one of the things I'm most anxious about is the fact that in Australia, I didn't sleep for 5 days straight. And like I feel like I need to sleep. Like that's a lot of time to be awake. And you said, well, your body is feeling tired. I forget exactly what your words were, but basically you said your body might be feeling fatigue and your body might be feeling tired, but you have infinite life source power. Your soul does not need sleep. Your true self does not need rest. So it doesn't really matter if you sleep. And honestly, I was like, that is so true. Like,
you're not your body.
I am not my body. Like my body, yeah, it might be a little tired, but as long as I'm like laying down here with my feet up, like it doesn't really matter if I'm asleep or if I'm just resting.
Right, exactly. Sometimes just resting is all you need. And it's like, what are you connecting with? And because you meditate, you're now able to connect with that life force energy, with that higher self, that higher intelligence. I'm saying a lot of different words for the same thing.
Yeah.
And that life force energy is what's powering the blood to flow and the breath to flow and the heart to beat and for you to be able to see through your eyes and hear through your ears and all of those things. Like what's underneath all that? Does anybody ever contemplate that? What's underneath all of that? What's underneath all of that is you.
Yeah.
Is that life force energy, and it's unlimited. And it's never tired.
Yeah.
It's like very, like our meditation teacher, like, I don't even know if he sleeps. Like he might hang upside down from the corner of his room. Like he just doesn't sleep. Like, and he's like, I don't need sleep.
He's up at 2 a.m, I think.
Yeah. He's just so incredibly connected with the life force. He's completely not connected with his body other than to care for it in what it needs. It needs food.
However,
it needs some
he doesn't train.
Well, right.
Anywhere.
But he did walk across. He did walk across the United
America.
States.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Yeah. When he was like 15
teenager,
or something.
Oh my gosh,
And he
that's
talks
so
about like
awesome.
when this is actually a good segue into my next question. But like he talks about how like he walked out the door, walked to the end of the driveway, was like, okay, I'll go
Like
left.
Forrest Gump. He just like kept walking.
Walked to the end of the road, and he said when he got to the stop sign at the end of his road, like at the end of his street where his house was, and he was like, okay. It's on.
Oh my
like,
gosh,
it's
that's
real
awesome.
now. It's real. And he didn't have a lot of money, and he just had a
and
little
he walked
backpack.
at night because of the
Yeah.
sun. So he was walking a lot at night and then ducking.
Sleeping during the day. Or
sleeping during
not
the day.
Yeah,
sleeping,
and
but
then-
resting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just trusting and just
Trusting the
getting
process.
Yeah. So when did you ever have that moment where you're just like, whew, okay, there's no more waiting. It's on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think once I kind of got through letting go of that expectation, then it was game on. Like, let's just do this. But I definitely had to let go of that first.
Mm-hmm. How did you let go of it?
Meditation.
Really just sitting in meditation.
Just sitting in it, just sitting and allowing myself to feel all the different emotions, but not let them be a factor in the decision-making process.
Yeah. So it's keeping a space between the emotions, the feeling, the sensation that you're having, and the thoughts about it.
Yeah.
Because when those two things come together, like they just lock in.
Yeah.
And that's attachment.
Yeah.
And then those form the expectations and things like that. And so all of these kind of concerns that you've had that we've talked about so far, none of them have been like, I was just in my breath and I was totally in the present moment and I was having this huge problem. Like all of the fears were always in the future. It was always about what was in the future. So I think that's the greatest thing that meditation does as far as mental training is that it trains your mind to be focused on something other than the commentary in your head.
Yeah.
And if you can get freedom from that, and at first, like, it's going to suck. And I know you've had meditations like this where you sit down and it's just like a barrage of thoughts. Like, yeah, right.
Yeah,
like,
I still have that. I still have that sometimes.
I had that the other day because I was really excited about the day. So it was all joy and it was
Yeah.
excitement. But I was like, no, it was like,
Yeah.
like just firing in all these wonderful thoughts. But I'm like, no, even the wonderful thoughts, I want to continue to create that gap.
Yep.
And have my focus on something other than that commentary, so I can have that higher, like that stronger relationship with that higher intelligence.
Yeah.
That says, don't get on that plane, or, you know, take a right, or whatever it may be.
Go to the coffee shop and bag the miles.
Go to the coffee shop. Yeah.
That's
Is that
the
like
space.
a good cup of coffee?
Yeah, it was.
You're just like glad you were there.
Yeah, and you know what? It turned out to be just the most beautiful experience that we had. So ironically, well, not ironically, this wasn't a vacation. Like, we didn't go to Hawaii and like ride and run and then like sit on the beach. Like, it felt like there was no downtime. It was like you're training, you're eating, you're sleeping. Well, you're training, you're eating, you're training, you're eating, you're sleeping. And it was that day after day after day after day. And there was not any extra time. And so that day, we sat and had a cup of coffee and just like killed a couple of hours. And then I got on my bike. So from Waimea, we had a 10-mile descent back to Kauai, which is where, Kauai is kind of the northernmost intersection of the Queen K. I don't know if the Queen K runs east or west or north or south. It doesn't matter.
It's just data and information. We don't really care.
But it's that terminus of the Queen K. So that descent, I did want to practice because it can be a little sketchy with winds and stuff. And I hadn't ridden that part before. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to get on my bike here in Waimea. I'm going to ride the 10 miles down to Kauai, and then I'll hop back in the van. And the rain had stopped on that part of the course. And so I got on my bike, like 20 minutes later, I'm at the bottom of the hill, hop back in the van. And then we just on the way back, we had a 25-mile drive or 35-mile drive back to Kona. And we're like driving, and we see this like stand on the side of the road where this local has like coconuts, and he's like busting them open and sticking a straw in there. So we like stopped and got a coconut. We're like drinking coconut water right out of the coconut.
Right. That's exactly what you needed.
Yeah.
You needed a little bit of a break.
A reprieve,
from like the just being in the
the training. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we, on the way, farther down the road, just past the airport, there's a lava tube on the non-ocean side. And I've looked at it 1,000 times and thought, that would be really, like, there's always people there stopped on the side of the road, like taking pictures and looking around. And I've looked at it 1,000 times thinking that would be really cool to go like check that out. And as we're like getting close to it, I was like, I want to stop and see the lava tube. And so we just like stopped on our way home and just like spent an hour walking around the lava tube and, taking pictures and just like being a tourist.
That's so cool. Not being like you just switched your role.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes we play all these different roles in our life. And I think as athletes, we get really good at like being the athlete because we've got so much going on and we're juggling so many things. But it's being able to, step away from that role and sometimes unexpectedly and be okay with it and just follow. Like, I'm going to stop and see this lava tube that I've gone by so many times and see all these other normal people doing normal people stuff. Like, I just need to do some normal people stuff. Yeah. That's perfect. So let's talk about the race, the swim.
Yeah, the swim. I think that's like
because
right
you
from
said,
the start.
Of course, my reference point is you. So I'm like, okay, it takes 3 hours to do a 10K swim. But when you said like 3 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
And I know some people didn't make the cutoff that day even. So I can't even imagine being out there for that long.
Yeah.
So how did it go for you?
It went well. I had done the swim once in training, and it was terrible. it was just really rough, and we were swimming against a current, and
there was no buoys.
Is this one big lap, or is it an out and back?
It's point to point.
Point to point.
It's point to point. So you swim from Digme Beach, which is where Ironman swim starts, and then you swim 6.2 miles down to Keoho Bay at the end of Ali'i Drive, and the last, the swim is very dependent on the current. So some years you could have a really fast swim if you have a nice tail current. And the only reference that I have is two of the athletes that I know, Rob Gray and then Tara Norton, have both done this race before. And they were both like 20 to 30 minutes slower than what they've swam in the past. So it was at, the last 2 miles of the swim, we were swimming against a current, and it was just really challenging,
Which
physically
is like
challenging.
like an Ironman swim. Like
You still have to go back.
The last 2 miles, yeah. The Ironman swim portion of
the Ironman
A
swim
4-mile
portion.
warm up.
Yeah.
Exactly. So imagine that, like an Ironman swim just against the current the whole time.
Yeah.
I heard there was one point where you looked at your kayaker and you were like, I'm never getting done with this.
Yeah.
When was that?
That was it was shortly after that 2 miles to go mark, because I had stopped. So we stopped every 30 minutes to feed. And so, the first couple times that I stopped, she was like, "You're doing awesome. You're in the top 4 positions and you're the first female." And then the third time I stopped, she didn't give me any information. And at that point I couldn't see anyone else around me. In that first, hour or so, I could see, other kayakers like a ways away, but I could see them when I breathed. And she didn't give me any information. So I was like, oh, I wonder if I'm not first female anymore.
Best not tell her where she is.
Yeah.
But you were first female.
I was, yeah.
Yeah, the whole time.
I think it was at the halfway point when I stopped, I actually could see the next female behind me. I mean, she was like right behind me. It's illegal to draft in Ultraman, even on the swim. So she wasn't by any means that close, but I could see her there to where she could easily have passed me and I wouldn't have known it. And then my final feed stop, I was actually in the process of passing another athlete, and that turned out to be me putting myself into the third place position. Overall, yeah. Because there were boats that were spotting out on the swim course, and they were relaying information back to the shore, and everybody thought I was in fourth. And then when I came around the final buoy to swim into the bay, they were like, "Oh no, it's not this other athlete, it's Mary."
Nice.
So,
what did you take in for food?
I used a product called Martin, which is it's from Sweden, and I actually learned about it from the guy that I crewed Badwater for. And it comes in a liquid, like a packet. You mix it with water. It also comes in gel form now. But the science behind it is that it doesn't absorb in your stomach. It's encapsulated, so it bypasses the stomach and it's absorbed through the small intestine. So it's very little risk of GI upset. And there's 320 calories in a bottle, which is a huge calorie pack.
And that's really where you want it to hit, because that's where the assimilation of all the nutrients happens, is in the small intestine.
Yeah.
So it kind of bypasses the stomach. That's pretty...
It's genius.
I like that. See?
Yeah.
I was going to say, why aren't more people using that?
The intellect comes in super handy sometimes.
Well, and I had heard about it years ago.
That's really
because
cool.
they sponsor some professional marathoners, like Meb is sponsored by Martin, and there's a few others. So I had seen it in magazines and things like that, but I had never really read or heard anything about it until I crewed for Ollie, and he shared his wisdom. And
So how many bottles did you take in during that swim?
I had 4 bottles on the boat, and I took in about 3.5.
Whoa.
Yeah. So I took in a full bottle. So like your normal bike bottle.
So over 1,000 calories you took in on that swim.
Yeah. I had almost 1,200.
How are you so do you get on your back? Because can you touch the boat or not touch the boat?
You can't make forward progress, but you are allowed to touch the boat. But you're in salt water with a wetsuit, so it's pretty easy to float with very little treading of water. So I would I literally just pounded the bottle as fast as I could and tossed it back to her and kept swimming.
Very cool. What did you eat before the race? You said you were able to get some food down.
Yeah, I had picky oats.
Oh, yeah.
And a couple of bananas.
Oh, bananas are the best.
Yeah.
Not if you're Jody from SmashFest Queen, though. She does not like those.
Yeah, and Christina hates bananas too.
She does?
Christina Kraus, yeah.
Christina Kress? I didn't know you didn't like
Russ
bananas.
Edgley took in 100
She
and
hates
what?
bananas.
She did? I never knew that about her.
I know. I think it's like so random. How can you not like bananas?
No, Jody Gilmore doesn't like them either. Do you know Jody? She's on
Yeah.
set. Yeah. She doesn't like them either. She's always, could you please make a smoothie without bananas? She's always gagging. She's probably gagging right now hearing me even say the B word. Yeah, we were just listening to Russ Edgley.
Went around the UK.
Yes, I just saw Ritual did the podcast with him.
649 bananas
Yeah.
became his fuel.
Yeah.
Well, one part
Which
of
is really
his fuel,
about 4 a day, which is not that much.
That's not much.
but still, it's a lot of bananas.
All right, let's stop talking about the bananas for the people that don't like bananas. I love them. Okay, so
And so does Clark.
So you come off the swim. Now that's a long ass swim. Are you kind of like a little waterlogged, or you're just ready to go? How are you feeling?
I felt pretty good,
Nice.
which was so nice because that was one thing I learned from Australia. In Australia, I took in 4 gels and 2 bottles of water total. So that's like 400 calories. And, because I knew, I was like, I'm hoping to be out of the water in under 2 hours and 45 minutes. So 400 calories, that's plenty. No, it's not plenty. It's not plenty. Like you're saying, it's not plenty. So that, in Australia, I came out of the swim and I was so hungry for like 2 hours on the bike and had no power. And I had a headache. I felt terrible. So I was like, we are taking in all of the calories.
That's awesome that you were able to get all that in. It sounds like that stuff is really designed to just bypass any gut sickness. So onto the bike. What does the 90-mile bike look like that day? You still had some climbing.
There was a lot of climbing, and you like straight out of the gate, you're climbing for like 10 miles. And then maybe not 10, maybe it was like 7, but it doesn't matter. And then you have a little bit of a descent, and then you start climbing again, and it's basically just rolling hills from there on out.
And are you taking in that same nutrition, or are you switching it up at this point?
So I switched. So on the bike, I primarily used Tailwind, which is still liquid calories, but it's like super popular among trail runners. It's very high in electrolytes, and so it was like in one bottle I had 300 calories and almost 1,000 milligrams of sodium. So I was using that as like my primary hydration and calories, and then I would supplement when I could with like Picky bars and Cliff bars. Nice.
And no problems?
No problems nutritionally.
Yeah, and you felt good coming off the bike that day?
Yeah. Thankfully we ended the day with like a 10K downhill. So that allowed me to get over the bad mood that I might have been in prior to that.
Why?
Back
up.
Yeah.
When did the
come
claws
from?
of the bad mood come in?
I was just like,
get you.
I was like, where are these hills coming from? Like, I just didn't remember there being that much climbing. I mean, I had ridden the day 2 bike course, and I was like, I don't remember it being this much climbing.
Yeah. I had a very similar experience in the last race I did. I came in from the first loop and I was like, I need to look at the course profile because I feel like that whole last part is downhill. And I remember the race director was like, it's all uphill. I'm like, I didn't feel that at all. I was able to run the whole thing. And the second time I was like, climbing, like, oh my God, I feel like I'm on a totally different course.
Yeah.
So it's like you forget. So maybe when you rode that, you were feeling good. Now, you come off of that, you're fueling. So you're fueling for the swim, you're fueling for the bike, but you're also fueling for the next day and the next day. So what are you able to get in that night?
Straight off the bike, you get in line for massage. And so we had we knew all this, so we were prepared. And the minute I get off my bike, the crew hands me my recovery shake, which is basically just like blended fruit with protein powder and almonds and hemp seeds. So I can just start getting calories in right away. And then I had some noodles and some rice and avocados with soy sauce and I think part of a muffin. I don't remember. You just have to like keep eating until...
Did you eat potatoes? Potatoes like the perfect food.
They are, and I don't remember if I ate them or not.
Heidi, she eat potatoes? She did not eat potatoes.
Is she missing anything from her food diary, which we will check?
So little known fact, Heidi went through the Culinary Institute of America in New York. So she's...
potatoes, are they the perfect food, or did I just read some bullshit article about them?
Supposed to be. I can't.
They're supposed to like have all the nutrients you need to survive. Okay, good, because I just put that in my new cookbook. I just put that fact in my new cookbook. So I don't want
The one that just went up to Amazon?
Yeah, and there's no bibliography and there's no fact checking. So there, just make some pizza and be happy. All right, cool. So you get your massage, you get your fruit, you come home, you eat, and then is it like right to bed? Did you shower?
I'd be wired.
Obviously you have to shower. Yeah, you wired?
I'd be wired.
We had to shower prior to massage, so it's like an outdoor.
I love it.
I mean, I'm sure you guys have outdoor showers in ocean or in Carlsbad next to the
Yes.
ocean. So you just like rinse off and change clothes,
Right.
which was actually pretty fantastic.
Oh yeah, get out of that science project.
Yeah. And then I did take like a real shower and
No chafing, sunburn.
no,
Unscathed. That is money.
Yeah.
Especially coming from the salt water.
Yeah.
Swim. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, we were prepared because we heard that the showers were not going to be functional at the swim exit. And so we had a little like camp shower, which basically you just like put one end in the bucket of water and then the other one is like your shower head. And so I was able to like rinse off when I got out of the swim.
Preparation. See,
Yeah.
all these details.
Details.
So important.
Yeah.
Okay, so day 2.
Just the bike. You and the bike.
Did you have the oatmeal again for
Yeah.
breakfast?
Yeah.
That seems to work really well. Our athlete Liz uses that running on Venti. She loves that stuff.
Yeah.
And then how does day 2 go? What's your mental approach to day 2? How are you feeling?
I felt pretty good. My family was when I told them that I was invited to Ultraman Worlds, they decided that would be the perfect opportunity for a Hawaiian vacation. So my mom and dad and my younger sister with her whole family were there, and they met me at the start and finish line every day. And so they were there at the, where we kind of gathered for the start line of day 2. And, there's just like, there's something really like comforting about having your dad there. Just like, everything's going to be fine, I don't have to be nervous. It's fine.
And are they kind of cool and calm with it too?
Yeah.
Like it's just normal. Like I know I see that with my mom all the time. Like sometimes I'm like, yeah, I just put myself in a lottery for a 50 miler. She's like, oh, that's great. So I'm getting really busy at work. I'm like, Mom, and she's like, it doesn't surprise me. What do you want me to tell you? Like you're gonna do it. Like we've been doing this for so long.
I know. And I think I'm a little bit guilty of like not sharing a lot of details because I feel like some of the stuff that we do, like my parents would be really like terrified, like this is really unsafe, or why do you need to be out there
I think it's probably really smart that
biking
you
on?
don't.
Yeah, it's
Because
just like they don't need to have all those.
Well, and it's just exactly. And if it's going to make them fearful, now there's fear around the situation.
Right,
So
and it
it's
doesn't
just
need to
better to.
be-
That's why I
yeah.
always tell people like be really stingy about who you tell like you're sick. Like don't put it on Facebook.
Yeah.
Don't tell people you're not sick because everybody's going to come in, and then
And
that
with their
sickness is
opinions,
just going to
yeah.
start ripping.
keep
It's
building
going to
that
start ripping
momentum
through the
all
town.
around there.
Now we got an outbreak.
When I was lying on the massage table at the end of day 1, I didn't even know my parents were at the finish line because they kind of like I got off my bike and my crew like ushered me down to the shower and into the massage line as quickly as possible. And so I'm on the massage table and my mom comes over to like, basically like say great job and see you in the morning. And she's like bursts into tears. And I was like, why are you crying? Like, what's wrong? And my crew was like, it's fine. She's just really proud of you. I was like, oh, okay. Happy tears I'm okay with. Like, we don't need like crazy tears.
Yeah, it's just and just being in that environment. I think it gets really real when people are in the environment.
Yeah,
They're
and they can
seeing,
see what's going
Oh, and they're
on.
seeing the other competitors and the people that are coming back in because they didn't finish it that day.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does day 2 go?
Did you go all in?
I did.
Yeah, Hillary was like, go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. Like, let's go back to that command. That's a little daunting.
Yeah.
Like, just go. You're gonna have to ride hard.
Yeah.
You're just gonna have to do it.
Yeah. And I
And
mean,
you were at peace with that.
Yeah. I was like, there's no other way. There is no other option. Because me taking it easy or trying to conserve energy for the back half of the race, like, that's not going to get me done in under 12 hours. There is no other option.
So you had to take that risk.
I had to take that risk. And if I blew up, I blew up. But I wasn't
Right.
going to not take the risk and then be like, oh, well, crap, now I need a do-over.
Right. But the bigger the risk, which is a big risk to be like, okay, just go hard on the bike on day 2 of an Ultraman, but the bigger the risk is like
The bigger the
the
reward.
reward.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Like there's that's always the equation, is that the bigger you go, the bigger the other side's
Yeah.
going to be either way. Like, so that's
Yep.
what the whole risk is. You don't know if you're going to go, if you're going to ascend or descend
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
And if I had tried and failed, I wouldn't have been disappointed. If I had gone all in and still failed, I would not have been disappointed because I gave it my best effort.
Mm-hmm.
But if I hadn't tried, then, I mean, that's just, I can't even.
That's something that would be really
Think about.
difficult to get.
Yeah.
Let's not think about that.
No.
That's because that's a really hard thing, I think, to get over, because it's really showing you the truth of where you are in relation to what your goals are. And your
Yeah.
goal was to be an official finisher. So that means then you got to go hard on day 2. And you got to go hard to the point where you might blow up.
Yep.
And you might go hard to the point where you don't make the cutoff. But you're going to finish that ride no matter what it looks like.
Yeah.
And it really shows you if you're willing to go all in for your goal, for your, some people don't like that word. I like the word. I think goal is good. It keeps us driving towards
Yeah.
something.
I think goals are good to have. I think people get caught up in the attachment to it.
Yeah.
Yes,
exactly.
it's the attachment
Exactly.
that is.
If you just have a goal, great. Yeah, we all
Yeah.
have goals, but how much is that attachment? So
Yeah.
being a participant, like I want to finish, like keeping it neutral. This
Yep.
is what happens. I think that goal piece, when they get so attached, it just
Yeah.
causes suffering. Causes a lot of suffering that is unneeded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that day, it sounds like you were just really focused.
Yeah.
You were saying, and you know, the definition of flow, it sounds like you were in flow. 'Cause the definition of flow is the merging of activity and awareness.
Yeah.
And it really requires the mind to be trained in order to do that, because if not, then the mind's just going to be that monkey
Yeah.
swinging in the jungle. And if that monkey is swinging in the jungle when you're going hard on this huge daunting bike where you, I mean, literally failed in the
Yeah.
weeks leading up to it, it's going to make for a much tougher day.
Yeah.
It's going to make for a lot of energy being expended that you could be using through your body, through channeling that life force,
Yeah.
through your physical body to stay focused and get the work done.
Yeah.
That's what you needed to do. That was a job. You had to go out there and do your job that
Yeah.
day.
I think that was so important. I think our audience needs to know you can't base everything on one workout. You can't
No.
base the whole, even if it's a great workout,
Yeah.
good or bad.
Good or bad, yeah.
It doesn't matter. Race day is so different, but what Jess was saying, you got to show up and do the work.
Yeah.
So you came into this day 2 of the bike. You came in first place, right? You're entering this bike race first woman, right?
No, I was in second.
You were second woman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tara Norton was in first.
Yeah. She was amazing.
But you weren't far behind.
No, I think she had like a 15-minute. 15
To
or
start
30
day
minutes.
2.
Yeah, to start day
Okay.
2. Yeah.
Did that play in anything? Did that
No,
even
no,
like
no.
approach? No.
No.
Okay. Good.
No.
Just focus on yourself. Just
Yep.
focus
Yeah.
on your ride.
Yeah.
That's huge.
All right. So you're hitting this ride. You're hitting 71 miles.
Yeah, 170. I think it was like 171.4.
Okay, 171.4. It's important. The
It
point
was
4.
the point. Okay, take that point 4. Take it.
So carry us, bring us through the bike specifically. If there were were there any moments where you were just packing it up?
Never.
Never.
No. And honestly, I mean, like, I wish that there was a way to explain, like, the feeling of being in that flow when there are no thoughts. And there's no way for me to explain that.
You can't explain it, but everybody could achieve it if
Yeah.
they just started practicing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just like, it is the most powerful and really the most perfect experience you could ever have.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think it feels so powerful to be in the flow? Is there something that's like not interfering in that experience that's allowing for the flow?
I don't know what's not interfering, but I will say, like, you feel connected with your true self. And just, this is your purpose. This is what you're doing.
Well, I think it's lack of resistance too.
Oh yeah.
You don't have that resistance. So if you don't have resistance, then you can stay in flow. You can keep yielding.
Yeah.
And that's really surrender. Like you surrendered to what you needed to do, to the climbing, to the experiences that you had. You just surrendered to it.
Yep.
And you focused. And you stayed focused because you've been training your mind now for over a year. And what comes of that surrender is power.
Yeah.
Surrender is not weakness. It's not giving up. It's not waving the white flag and saying, take me captive.
Yeah.
It's very, very powerful to be in that place of surrender because all you're doing is just yielding to what is.
Yep.
And it just makes everything so much easier.
Yeah.
And you can live a life like this.
Yeah.
You can live life like this. All right. So, Heidi, what was like the impression that you were getting when, oh, she's coming over. Good. When like you saw her.
I want to talk about.
She has opinions on day 2.
Day 2
Here,
Hawaii,
sit down.
Day 2 Hawaii is not day 2 Australia.
Yeah.
It's very
Because you were
different.
in Australia.
Yeah. But day 2 Hawaii, there was a difference in her and how she was, and it didn't click on what it was until you just said flow. It didn't click at all.
Yeah.
But there was
Chris
more. And I couldn't stop talking about it. Like, there was just something so different, and it was so, and you couldn't call it, I think somebody called it determination. I'm like, it's not determination. This is different.
Because the
This is just
determination
head down,
is still
you're
like,
still forcing.
you're still
There
like
was-
driving through that personal will.
There was no force. It was so smooth and effortless, and very little was said, but yet so much was understood. Did that?
Yeah. That makes a lot
So
of
from
sense.
And none of it made sense until just like the last 10 minutes listening to this.
From a crew standpoint, is this a point where you're feeding her nutrition, you're helping her out, but is it also a stepping away and letting her, you're seeing this, you're seeing her go through this bike ride. It's like, yeah, but just like let her do her
It
thing.
kind of was more of I felt like a mesh. It was very, because we still had to do our thing. We still had to make sure, because you don't know what she's thinking. You don't know what she's going through. You just know that something's different. But you want to make sure, because she still has to get to the end, and she still has to get through the next day.
I still have to eat all the
and
calories.
She has to eat, and I was going to
Right. You still have
all the calories, which was counted.
you still
meticulously.
have to do the work. That's the thing. It's like even when you're in flow, you still have to do the work. But in the absence of resistance, everything opens up. All your power opens up. All that muscular power opens up. All that mental power opens up. Everything is now available because nothing is blocking it.
Yeah.
That's like masterful racing. That's masterful racing. And I could see it from the videos. I was like, oh, she is so in the zone. Like she is so just like in
There.
that flow. Like I knew she was just in that flow. I could see it. It was amazing. So how many calories did you end up taking in on the bike?
What was it, about 300 an hour?
3 to 325, depending on what was going on. Yeah.
Times how many hours?
10 hours and 45 minutes.
Okay.
We did
What's
back
that?
off
How
on the
many-
calories.
Well, that's
on
like
That's
3,000.
hour, 'cause we're like-
Roughly 3,000 calories.
Yeah, 3. Okay, good. It was like 30,000
Let me get my
calories.
calculator.
Well, that's why I was like, okay, calculate. Get that calculator out. So like 3,000 calories. And were you going to say?
Yeah, with solid food and your liquid
Yeah.
mix, right? The tailwind.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what happened, after that? Like, what was your dinner like, and what were you able to get down? Don't go too far, Heidi. We might be getting you back on. But if you want to lay on the bed, that's okay. She's like pointing at the bed. I'll be
She's
over
out.
here.
She's down.
So I just did my same recovery smoothie at the finish line. And then the place that we stayed, so the second night we stayed up in Hawaii. So there was like a little restaurant in our hotel. And I just had it was like a rice bowl with rice and veggies and some kind of sauce on there, protein.
And you slept pretty good that night?
Yeah.
See, because were you not coming off these workouts starving because you were so topped
well
off?
fed? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so important. That's something that I do in my racing too, is that like I'm taking stuff in to the end because I'm thinking about, I don't need to come across the finish line completely depleted.
Yeah.
Like to have, like you don't, it's beyond the finish line, because beyond the finish line is what's taking me to my next race. So beyond the finish line is like my recovery, which is going to get me back to training. And so like keep fueling, I've never missed those last aid stations.
Yeah.
Always keep the fuel
top
coming
pros
in.
Doing that too. When you watch Kona and stuff, there's people going down with that last aid station, grabbing some sort of
taking
drink
it in.
Yeah, it's not over yet.
Yeah, it's not over yet, and then as soon as you cross that finish line, it's just beginning.
Yeah.
Okay, so last day, all you had, no more bike riding.
No more bike riding.
Were you excited about that?
I was so excited
because I know
you
love your bike.
Yeah, I do love my bike, but I'm pretty sure I might have sworn that I would never ride my bike again. This is not. I did swear that, but that's not true. I will ride my bike again.
Have you ridden it since?
No, I rode the trainer once, and then I was going to do an hour ride outside, but actually the guy who takes care of my bike still had my bike from Hawaii, so I took out my commuter bike and just rode on the canal.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was so awesome.
That's exactly what, that was like that cup of coffee that day. That's exactly what you need to do.
This is perfect.
Yeah, just like I'm a normal person on my normal commuter bike.
Like I could have a bell and a basket on here. Like this is awesome.
That's so cool. So how did you feel waking up for day 3?
I mean, I was excited. The thing about the bike, I love riding my bike, but there's so much unknown as far as like mechanical issues and are you going to have a flat tire and, all this stuff. And I had those in training while we were there, and you can't predict when that's going to happen. So when I come off the bike, whether it's Ironman or Ultraman, I feel a little bit of home free. I knew that no matter what happened on day 3, I could get to the finish line in under 12 hours.
Yeah. I've always had I don't know if you have this too, BJ, but such a gratitude getting off the bike.
Yes.
I'm like, and I would always take a moment of like, thank you.
Yeah.
I see that protection. I'm off safely.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to go soak this run up.
Yeah. And we had so much good karma. First of all, we had absolutely perfect weather conditions on the bike. On both day 1 and day 2. I mean, we could not have had better weather conditions if you paid Madame Pele. I mean, it was absolutely perfect.
Alignment.
And my crew helped at least 4 different athletes with various mechanical issues and flats and things like that. And I think just like building that little bit of good karma definitely protected me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's cause and effect.
Yeah.
Yep, the law of cause and effect.
So then just a double marathon.
Yeah.
That's it.
And we were watching, we were watching Facebook Live.
Yeah.
And it was in the dark. Like, it's super dark out and everybody's got lights. And they had the dancers. I think the dancers came out. I can't remember. Was that?
We do a little ceremony in the morning on day 3.
And they blew the conch shell.
Yeah, it wasn't the Irish dancers that the hotel down there.
It wasn't the step dancers that are here for the Indian Wells event.
But they do have a ceremony before.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of low. It was just like, okay.
Yeah, it's super low key. They do the conch shells, and then we all get in a circle, and Jane gives a little blessing, and it's just kind of, you're giving back gratitude for like everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of love there, and I love the little ceremonies and the circles, and there's just reverence.
Yeah.
And I think that we can lose that reverence so much when we're, if, I don't know, something gets canceled in a race or something gets changed and stuff, people just lose their touch with like holding these experiences with reverence, because it doesn't matter if the swim gets canceled or if the water temperature is cold. It's all for you.
Yeah.
It's all for you to give you that reference point of where you are. And then if you don't like where you are, guess what? Now you have this opportunity to go where you want to go.
Yeah.
But the more and more that we get into this alignment and we're moving from that calm and we're moving from gratitude and we're being in flow, you will see more and more that the weather is perfect, that you have no trouble on the bike, that everything just continues to line up for you, because we don't have to have so much struggle in our life.
Yeah.
And struggle and suffering comes from resisting what is. If we looked at everything as an opportunity that it's coming in for us, and to just be able to slow down within a moment, which doesn't mean like you're physically slowing down, but you're just experiencing the moment. You get to see what those things are that the universe is tasking you with. And when I talk about the universe, I'm talking about your higher intelligence. You are the one that's tasking yourself with what it is that's unfolding, because you are the one that is creating your reality.
Yeah.
All the time. Okay. Double marathon.
Negative split?
No.
Is that even? It's probably just just go.
Yeah.
Just go. Yeah, but like, what was the plan?
You just look like a machine. Like, it was just steady
Clicking off the
pacing.
miles.
Yeah. And it's really, I mean, you just have to run easy. I just have to run easy.
What are you doing with the sensation in your body? Did you have some sensation show up?
Oh, yeah, there was a lot of, and I think at one point I was like, gosh, there's a lot of swirly energy going on. Like, whoever I was running with just like laughed.
That's such a light way to look at it, though, because if you're like, I have so much pain in my foot, that just seems so like dark and daunting.
Heavy.
But when you're like,
Heavy.
I have swirly energy in all 10 of my toes right now, it's like there's that lightness about it.
Yeah. And I mean, so I tried, my plan was to just get to Kauai High without a pacer, which is like roughly somewhere around 18 miles. And then there's a little stretch, it might be, a mile or two, where you finished the descent from Hawi, and then you make a left-hand turn, you climb, and it's super hot in that area. Like, it's in a spot where there's just like the land mass covers, so there's no breeze whatsoever. And then you turn onto the Queen K to head back to Kona. And I was like, I know I'm going to want somebody there with me in that 2-mile stretch, because like this area can be a complete mind fuck, if I'm allowed to say that.
Say whatever
you want.
And so I picked up, Chris jumped in to run with me when I got to Kauai High. And from there on, they rotated through about every 30 minutes of who was running with me. And, everybody's personality is so different, and their relationship to me is so different. And so, it was like a lot of different things going on during the run.
Was there ever a time where you were just like, I need silence, like, don't talk to me? Or were they kind of feeling you out and gauging that?
Yeah. I didn't need silence necessarily. I think everybody did a pretty good job of like kind of gauging where I was at, and they would, tell me stories, or for whatever reason, when I'm running with Chris, like, we just like talk about everything. I mean, like everything, like world problems and politics and like, relationship drama and like just everything. So the miles that I was running with him like went by so quickly. So I think, my crew can see all of this happening. And so they actually, like, at some point they were like, okay, Chris, you're going to be running a lot more than what you were planning on running. Like, we just need to put you in there. But the funniest thing, so Josie was the second person, I think, to jump in and run with me after Chris. And so the first time she jumps in, she's like so excited. I mean, her energy is just like, you can't match her energy.
Right.
And she's so excited. And I'm like, I realize I'm only like 20 miles in, but it was hard from the start just because of how hard I went on day 2. And I think at one point I must have like made a noise. Like, you just like like grunt or whatever as you're running. You're just like, So I must have like made a noise, and like I saw her reaction. I don't even think I realized I was making noise. And then I see her reaction. I was like, it's okay. Like this is completely normal. And she was like, oh, okay. And then she like completely snapped out of it and just like started telling me stories. There was like this moment of like panic on her face. And then she was like, oh, okay, it's fine.
Okay,
it's
now we're
fine.
back. And we're back.
What was I saying? Oh, yeah, I got this story.
Yeah. And she can be a story, like she can be somebody that just tells you stories. And
Yeah.
But it's like, keep your pace too. Because
Yeah.
I feel like if I was running with her, I'd be running a lot faster than I needed to be because her energy is so strong. And I haven't met her in person, only like through her videos and stuff, but I can feel it then. I just love her. She's great.
Yeah.
And was there ever a time where, I mean, it seems like you were pretty darn steady. I mean, your execution was so amazing. But when did you really have to did you ever have to just completely detach from the body and just forge beyond that?
I mean, I felt like that was the whole double marathon. I mean, there was pain and sensation from the beginning. And I mean, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Nothing.
And how did it go?
You were running with we saw occasionally there were groups of people like running together. So it was okay on the run to sort of stay with other people.
And, you know, obviously you're all starting together. And so you kind of just like naturally break up into pace groups. And I was very fortunate to run with another girl for like maybe 8 or 10 miles. And it's just, and we didn't talk a lot, but it was just like, it's nice to just like have someone there and
doing the same thing, like
doing
going
the
through
same thing.
sensations.
Just having that connection. You don't even have to speak about it, but it like fulfills a human need.
Yeah,
to
exactly.
Connect. It really does.
But for a race my point is the race that's so long and has so few participants, to see somebody is pretty cool. I mean, your support crew's there with you the whole time, but to see somebody else, I mean, because the run is a point-to-point too.
Mm-hmm, yep.
Yeah, so you're not seeing people on the out and back.
No.
And there was only, 40 people?
40, and not all 40 started the run. There was maybe, I don't know, maybe there was 30 people that did the run.
Say 30. Like, you're rarely going to see someone, so it's probably kind of nice just to have that connection for a little while.
Yeah.
So how did the finish line feel? I cried.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah.
I could just that gratitude, those tears of just gratitude and joy.
Yeah. And I had done, in training, I had done the last 10 miles like 2 or 3 times. And so I just knew like every step of that last 10 miles. I knew the scenery. I knew the landmarks. I felt like it took me forever to get there on race day, but I was like, it's going to be there waiting.
And then what do you do? It's like you cross the finish line.
And then what?
Yeah. And then what?
Well, I hugged everyone. But yeah, it's just like super low key. You know, they're like, oh, great, you did this. Like, fantastic. So, and they just like move on to the next thing.
Right.
It's like,
which I love.
Awesome. I love it too. I love it too.
Because it's done now.
It's done. Yeah.
Right? We get to talk about it, we get to reflect, and we get to share all this great information with people. But it's done now.
Yeah.
And it's served a purpose, and it's still serving a purpose within you, and it's going to continue to serve a purpose, like, because it was so epic and it was so big. Like, you're going to continue to call upon it, whether you know it or not, throughout your life. But it's done now.
Yeah.
It's like, move on.
Yep.
Check.
And that just shows your detachment of it. And detachment is not indifference. It doesn't mean you don't care about it. It doesn't mean that you don't hold it in reverence, or that experience isn't something that, you know, that you'll remember for the rest of your life. It just means that you're not wishing that it wasn't over, that you aren't wishing that you're still back there, that you aren't like you're just where
I didn't wish that it had gone differently. You know, it was just like, this was good.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to us watching and listening to the crew that the execution was just perfection. Would you agree?
I'm glad my crew said that.
Well, just like what?
Yeah,
in their videos, I could just pick that up. That everything looked.
Yeah, there was
smooth.
It was very smooth. I mean, they did a fantastic job.
At the end of the day, I hate the line, it is what it is, but like that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Right. It is what it is.
What's happening now is what's happening now.
Right.
And that's what it's supposed to happen like. So
Yeah.
it's fine. Whether it's 20-minute mile or a 10-minute mile, it's still fine. It's
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. You still got it done.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest difference was between your experience in Ultraman not meditating and your experience to this Ultraman meditating? And do you even feel like that made a difference?
It absolutely made a difference. It made a difference in how I executed the race. In Australia, there was no flow. I mean, there wasn't. And it was fine. I still got it done, but there was no flow. And I enjoyed Australia. And I really feel like that period of time between Kona in 2016 and then Ultraman Australia in May of 2017, that like 6-month period of time and then immediately following was kind of like the beginning of my spiritual growth. You know, coming off of that 6-month period, I knew that I wanted more out of life, more out of myself. And, you know, that's when I reached out to you, was shortly after that, you know, because I knew like you had something that could probably help me get to where I wanted to be.
And did it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's only because you've done the work.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
100%. 100%. What did you learn about yourself this time around?
That's a really good question. I think I learned, well, number one, I still haven't found my limits. Before the race, when I was really going through a lot of struggle, I was like, I can't remember my why. I don't remember why I'm here. I don't remember why I wanted to do this. Like, I can't remember my why. And it felt really important to me. It's not really important, but in the moment, it felt important to me because I thought, if I don't know my why, how am I going to get through race day when things get tough? Because in Australia, knowing my why was what got me from the start line to the finish line every day. And I forget, somebody had posted something on Instagram, and a friend of mine was like, why are you doing this? You know, like, why are you doing this? And it wasn't in response to my struggle. It was just like, oh my gosh, like this seems unrealistic. Like, why are you doing this? And I was like, oh, because I haven't found my limits yet. I was like, oh, okay, well, there's a why.
There's one.
It's a big why.
There's a big why. Mm-hmm. But I also think that now I don't need a why. Like, sometimes just wanting to do something, even if it seems crazy or maybe out of reach, sometimes that's enough. And if you can get into the flow state, then it doesn't matter why, because you're not thinking about why. I didn't think about why during Ultraman Hawaii. It didn't matter. I was just doing the work.
You were just in the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you have to, like, yeah. I mean, I think that's really profound what you just said, because this community, you know, the endurance community is really that concept of, like, knowing your why is really important. And I think it's really important at a stage. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you what my why is, other than I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that I'm living my purpose every day.
Yeah.
And part of that purpose is now getting on the trails and doing some races. And I don't need to pull upon my why, because I'm so steeped in the experience and being so grateful for it all. Like, oh my gosh, my feet are on fire. Like my body is working. That's so amazing. You know, and that you're steeped in the experience. And I think that's the difference, is that you don't need to pull upon anything to keep you going, because the moment that you're in is enough.
It is. Yeah.
It's complete.
Yeah, I think the why serves a purpose for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it serves for
in this conversation with the people around in this room, the why is not always needed to be there. It's an entry point. And when people don't have that strong will and resolve to show up and do the work, if they're continuing to have those excuses or find those outs or listen to the thoughts, which it sounds like you're not listening to anymore. You're noticing them, but you're not listening to them. When you get to that phase, all the other stuff really doesn't matter, and you just show up and do the work, because you know you have a confidence. And I wanted to express this scenario where I was so lucky enough to spend time with you in Ironman Mount Tremblant, and just being in your presence. It didn't matter if we talked, because there were times where we didn't even talk at all. We were just sitting there, just in the presence. And I think I told Jess, or I'd called Jess and was telling her, just like, you just feel this presence of Mary, and you just, like, what isn't possible?
Yeah.
Because of your calmness and confidence of everything that you're doing, of showing up and doing the work. There's no surprise to me that you came in second place at Ironman World Championship. There's no surprise to me of what you're next going to achieve. There's no surprises anymore. I mean, there's still amazing accomplishments that you're going to have, but it's not a surprise, because the confidence and belief in yourself supersedes anything, any why, any compliment, anything people can say to you. If you have that inside in you and you're one with it, nothing else matters.
Yep.
And when I was in Mount Tremblant, something, you know, I took a piece of you, for sure.
Yeah.
So thank you. I took a little piece, and it's now propelled me forward.
Yeah.
So whatever it is you're doing, you don't have to know why. Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
The one thing we didn't touch upon, and then I think we should wrap this up. And then I'm thinking maybe we'll I know we wanted to talk about the whole crew thing.
Yeah.
And if you guys have time, we'll do that as a Patreon extra.
Yeah.
And we'll put that up for our Patreon supporters, because that seems like a really, really cool information.
Yeah.
But to get back to the logistics of things, because we did talk about nutrition for all the legs, except for we didn't talk about
run.
what you took in for the run.
Yeah. So the plan was, I was pretty comfortable running on either Tailwind or Martin. So I was like, we'll just have both available, and whatever I feel like we'll go with. And so I started with Tailwind, and for some reason it just I didn't feel like I was absorbing it. Pretty early on, I was like feeling hungry. And not hungry, but like bloated, but not like I wasn't getting energy. And so I said to Chris, I think I might have said we need to, I don't remember what I said to him, but I something along the lines of, I need to stop and walk and see if I can absorb, or I need to try to take in some solid food or something. Like, it just wasn't moving out of my stomach. And he was like, okay, yeah, no problem. So he gets back in the crew vehicle, they jump ahead a half a mile, I keep running. And like, just having said that and verbalized, this is what needs to happen, by the time I got to him 3 to 5 minutes later, my stomach had emptied. And I was like, I feel hungry now. So why don't we just switch to Martin? Like, everything's fine now. He's like, oh, okay, everything's fine now. So he handed me the Martin. So we switched to Martin, stayed with that the rest of the time. I took in some bananas. I had a couple Martin gels. I had a little bit of Coke later on. Heidi made me this espresso bomb, which was like...
Yeah, I saw that.
It was like Via powder from Starbucks mixed with like literally a shot glass of water. So it was like taking a shot of espresso. I did that a few times. It was pretty amazing. And then I did have some Pringles like in the last half marathon, just because I was like feeling a little bit hungry, but also like I was getting dehydrated and I wanted the salt.
So and I think at one check you were saying like she got in like 300 calories or something in an hour on the run. I mean, that's a lot of calories to be taking in. But I think what happened, and all of this is just like scientific equations, right? What happened when you had your belly was bloating and stuff is that you, instead of staying in the energy about how you were feeling, you switched into that solution energy of, okay, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
So then you got into the solution energy, and then guess what happens? The solution just follows.
Yeah.
Like and that's flow.
Yeah.
That's flow. Like you don't really have to be hammering a whole bunch of stuff on all these different topics and the way you feel. It's like, get into that solution energy, get in touch with what it is that you need, and then that will be provided.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No. I think we've covered it all.
All right. How people get a hold of you? How can they find you? You're still finding Kona?
I'm still finding Kona on Instagram. I don't think I have a Twitter account anymore because honestly, I never used it. So it's like gone.
Oh, and they can read about, you were blogging.
Yeah, so I have my blog, which is findingkona.blogspot.com. And then I just did an interview by my Team SFQ sisters on the SmashFest Diaries. So that's smashfestqueen.com. And at the top, you can click on SmashFest Diaries and read that.
Perfect.
Little
And we'll put all that stuff in the show notes too. All right, awesome. We're going to click off of here, and then we're going to click back on, and we're going to do a Patreon extra.
3-time guest, Mary Knott.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So what did you guys think? Masterful, right? Did you know that every single one of us has that same potential to realize our inner power? I'm serious. This isn't woo-woo talk. This is the real deal. And I think Mary is someone who continues to bring meditation to the forefront for athletes to get curious about. She is combining her spiritual and physical selves so skillfully. And that is really what is creating her epic race executions. Because we have to tend to the details. We need to know the lay of the land. It's important to gather and analyze the data and information. But when we then bring detachment, letting go, and presence to the table, we have the makings of an unstoppable spiritual being having a human experience. And it is so much freaking fun. So thanks so much for tuning in. And if you want more, then let me just tell you that we don't have just one, but we have 2 Patreon extras with Mary going on the site this week. Look for the first one at the end of this week and the second one next week. We dive into her amazing crew, Dan, Heidi, Chris, and Josie, how she chose them, and also shares tips and important factors to take into consideration when picking a crew. In the second extra, Mary lets us in on what's next for her. So that's it for this week. If you're interested in joining Team Yogi Triathlete, we do have a few spots open on the team, so shoot us an email at yogitriathlete@gmail.com. And let's get the convo started. Booking a high vibe retreat is another way to immerse yourself in the awake and ready life. Right now, we have dates in January and February only. December and March are booked. So don't delay as we continue to build the offerings. I'm realizing that the current price of $750 per person is a total steal. So grab it while it lasts. Because there's only more amazing things coming for these retreats, possibly opening them up to more people at one time and looking at other locations than Carlsbad in the future. So stay tuned. There is so much momentum happening here at Yogi Triathlete. We thank you for your support. If you are local to North County, I'm fired up to announce that I will be teaching the Tuesday 5:30 breath and movement class at Yoga Bound starting at the beginning of the year. So if you've never been to that studio before, let me know, shoot me an email, and you can come and be my guest. But I feel like there's going to be some really good energy around this Tuesday 5:30. They said they needed a strong teacher, and guess who they thought of? I'm so psyched. We are so grateful to you all, and we get lots of messages about how you are applying the teachings from this podcast in your own life. And we'd love to hear more, so keep those messages coming. 2019 is right around the corner, and the new year is always a beautiful time to experience the death of something that no longer serves you, to open yourself up to what it is that you wish to bring into your life. We are worthy of all of our dreams, because when we relentlessly pursue what we love, the evidence will show up. This is not a theory. This is science. Apply the equation skillfully, and you too will be in the know.